Okay. Contract to close. Their contract keys. What our roles are as agent. Yes, we know that we've got a transaction coordinator who helps with a lot of this, but you need to be aware of these steps as well to help make sure that your clients know what's going to happen. Anytime I'm looking at homes, or especially someone when they're looking at getting serious about writing an offer, we'll talk about what these kind of deadlines are. They're part of writing an offer. They need to know what they are, but it's a whole lot of stuff to get hit with all at once. And so it's easy for them to kind of get overwhelmed. So we're going to start with built standing homes. We're also going to take a look on another day at new construction because it has its own quirks, and as well as homes that require third-party approval. So the first thing to make sure has happened is that all the offer documents have been properly signed. I'm going to take this off. Trying to get this.
I can't figure out how to make it go away either.
There we go.
Oh.
So make sure everything's signed and communicated. When an offer is not considered accepted until it's been signed by everyone and communicated to the other parties. So communicated is the important part. And this is where agents on either side of the transaction can drop the ball. Just because Heather's clients signed it and you emailed it to me as the listing agent, don't count that as communicated because I might not see it for hours. Call, send a text message. It could have ended up in junk. If it gets sent out from BrokerMint, it might end up in their spam folder. So when you email it over, email it as an email with the PDF attachment. So it's going to be there. Okay. And that's why it's important to look at that, is making sure that everybody has their copies. Call the other agent, send them a text message. I just sent that over. Please confirm receipt. And when you send the email, put please confirm receipt. That way, as soon as I say got it, okay, now I can call my client back and say we're under contract. Earnest money. How many days do they have to provide earnest money? 4 calendar days. And this is another one of those we have to keep track of calendar and not business days. This can be rough. When does the count start?
The day after.
The day after what?
The offer is accepted.
So the day after acceptance. If the offer is accepted on a Thursday, when does the count start?
Friday.
Great. Friday.
Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. It has to be here by the end of the day. Monday. That's 4 days. And 2 of them
Our weekends.
are the weekend. Or like Labor Day,
Yeah, 3 of them.
3 of them are weekend. If the day ends up on a Sunday or a holiday, it gets bounced to the next business day. Really?
Oh, really?
Technically, it really should be here by that Sunday night. That's the hard part, though, is if they've got to go to the bank,
Okay.
bank's not there. If they're trying to mail it to us,
Yeah.
if you have an out-of-state client who is providing money to us from out of state, it's best to either use wire transfer with Earnest, or if they're having to send it to us, send it overnight. Send it UPS, send it FedEx, send it something that's going to come overnight. Once it comes in, we're responsible for making sure that the receipt of earnest money goes to all the parties. The brokerage has 4 more calendar days to actually deposit it. Michael actually has on his desk, has the scanner, and when he's in the office that day, he will run it that same day. We're not going to leave it sitting on a desk. If he's out of the office, then Marty has access to it as well. When they send it out, they need to make sure that they write out that it's to the Prime Real Estate Experts Trust account. Amory sends an email out with those instructions so they know. What's the best way to pay this?
Personal check.
Okay, personal check. What's second best?
Cashier's check.
Cashier's check, because it can still be traced to the bank. We cannot take cash.
Oh, okay.
Utah does not allow us to handle cash. So third would be wire transfer. We use the program Earnest.
What's the big thing about we learned in school about you can't commingle the money? You can't put the money in with your money. That's just the old thing.
No, the reason it has to be designated, it's a good question, why we don't commingle. The reason we have them write on the check that it's for the prime real estate trust account, and then on the memo line have them put their address, is so that it shows to everybody in the world that this was specifically to the trust account, not our operating account.
Well, it said that if you had like a banker's bag, you can't put two people's earnest money in.
If I were to, and if I had cash and would try to put them together like that, that would have been a problem.
But
However,
that's-
The Patriot Act made it so that we cannot accept cash.
Okay,
Because this real estate was a way that drug dealers were money laundering. They were buying houses with cash and turning around and selling them at a loss and didn't care. That was a way of washing money.
right.
So we can't handle money. Okay, the title company can handle money, but that would mean they'd have to be holding the money at the title company. And Utah title companies are not under the same set of rules. They're not even the same division as real estate. That's why if it's being held the title company, you have to have a whole addendum that says, we're holding this at title company. We prefer to hold it here because if there is a disagreement over it, we've got control over it instead of a title company. Okay. Yep, we just talked about those best ways to pay, prime real estate, LLC, trust account, and then memo line, have them put their property address and buyer name. That helps us to know who it is. And if you've got someone who's going to be bringing an earnest money check in and you're not going to be in the office, just send us a quick Slack. Is somebody going to be there? And then we'll make sure there's somebody here. And can get that receipt taken care of for you. That receipt of earnest money is just a simple form filled out, goes out, but that's how we send proof to the other side that they have it. If you have a client who hands you the earnest money check when you write the offer, I always recommend you take a picture of it.
Yeah.
And text us the picture as well, because we put a picture of it in the file, proof that it was there. Ultimately, Michael likes to put or Emery like to put a PDF of it into the file, proof that it exists. Okay, disclosure deadline. This is always going to be based on what the deadline that was set in the contract. We'd really have to pay attention to that lead-based paint disclosure. That actually should go in front of the REPC in the order you put in an offer if a lead-based paint disclosure is there. Seller's property condition disclosure comes whenever it's on the contract says. A lot of listings now, I'm actually seeing the property condition disclosures right there. Great, if they're available, give them to your client right away. If we can get those before the inspection, even better. Because then if there's anything we want the inspector to clue in on, we've got that information. We do have to do a preliminary title report search, so we need time to get that out. As an agent, when that title report comes in, you should be reviewing it. Make sure that you're looking in paragraph 2 and part 2 where it lists if there's any judgments or liens or anything against either party. Especially your own. Sometimes they don't know. Okay. HOA documents. There is actually a form that the listing agent should be sending to the HOA that is a statement, a disclosure reminder that they are under obligation under state law to provide those. Within a reasonable time frame, like 5 days of receipt. And if they do charge, it has to be a reasonable amount. Before that law passed, I had a client who was looking at HOA docs online. They were in a PDF format and they wanted $75 for a non-resident to download them. To download an existing PDF. It was like 25 for the homeowners. Like, no, that's
HOAs are just, it's so hard. The transfer fees, I cannot believe the transfer fees for an HOA.
they are a money-making nonprofit.
Yeah.
Technically, they're a nonprofit, but that's just okay. Inspection. Inspection is scheduled by the buyer, usually working with Amri. Hold on. Either with you as the agent or with Amri as your transaction coordinator. An actual inspection itself, when it is scheduled, the inspector schedules between a 2 and 3 hour time frame for the property based on the size of the property. Obviously, a little 1,300 square foot condo, they're not going to need 3 hours. 3,500 square foot home, they'll need more time. If the home is older, like my home, the 1960s era, they'll schedule more time just to make sure things are in good shape. And then they'll contact you about scheduling a time, the end of that, for about a 30 to 45 minute walkthrough with your buyer. If your buyer can't be there, then it's really important for you to be there, because that is the inspector that in a conversation with you about things that they've seen, things that are good and things that you might want to consider. The other reports take a little longer to get. Mold, meth, and radon take right now anywhere from 3 to 5 more days to get. So if they're having those tests done, you want to look at when their deadline is, their due diligence, because we don't want those reports coming back after the deadline. And some of these are taking longer than they used to, just because more people are doing it. More and more people are learning about radon. So, getting that done. Meth tests have to go to a lab and be done. Mold testing over the summer like this, a lot more get done because there's more mold in the air around us. Wintertime, it's a little different because there's no mold outside, it's frozen. If you have a VA loan, there is an additional inspection called the wood destroying insects report, and that's required for VA only. Until May of this year, the seller was expected to pay for that. Most sellers didn't know that. So we just went ahead and scheduled it. Now the buyer can pay for it. A lot of our inspectors we work with, in fact, all of them I recommend are qualified to do that same report, and they'll do it at the same time. It's just 2 separate reports, and then they can invoice it separately. There are a couple who I recommend who will do it for no charge. It's their way of saying thank you to VA buyers, and they're already there doing the inspection anyway. It's nothing extra. It's a 1-page form. If there are inspection-related repairs, then we use the resolution of due diligence addendum, because that allows them and we've got to document what they decided to do, either change in price, credit for closing costs, or a list of specific repairs. And if they want to extend the due diligence deadline so the repairs have time to be completed. Okay, all of that can be negotiated. The big reason being, what happens when you cancel under due diligence?
You do get your earnest.
You do get your earnest money back, and do you have to provide any kind of reason for canceling under due diligence?
No.
Okay, you do not. Good. If you cancel under financing and appraisal, yeah, you can be responsible for that. If your client does cancel and they're going to continue to write offers, all we need is a simple statement. It can even be just an email. Please retain my earnest money for future. Otherwise, we're obligated to write them a check for them to put back in their checking account to turn around and write us a check again later.
Yeah.
Okay, appraisal. The next big step. There's sometimes a misunderstanding with your clients. We don't order appraisal. Working with their loan officer is when they determine it's time to order the appraisal. It is like an inspection, it is paid for at the time of service. So typically when they order it is when they pay for it. And appraisal costs vary depending on the type of appraisal. When you get the appraisal report back, we have them sign that form as part of their buyer forms to get a copy from the lender. Or we can get a copy from them if they'll send it to us, because it belongs to the buyer. Especially if they have questions about how they came up with the value, if it came in at a different value than purchase price. 99% of the time, what you'll see on that is that they use the sales method approach, comparable sales. If it's a brand new home, they may actually use the cost approach. If there aren't enough comparable sales. But most of the time, they're going to look at comparable sales. One unique thing, a deadline that could come in there is if you work with a VA buyer and the appraisal value is coming in below the contract purchase price, you receive notice through the lender that the appraiser has issued a Tidewater, which gives you 48 hours working with the seller's agent to provide 3 qualified comparable properties that have closed, that have already closed, and then any additional documentation on the price. Now, one nice thing is Tidewater used to be they had to be closed before they went under contract. But with the way the market has been the last couple of years, there was so much variation. If you went under contract 30 days later, the same home could have gone up a significant amount with properties that had closed. So it has to have closed prior to Tidewater. Financing and appraisal deadline, we know the big reasons why we have to pay attention to that one. And that is, we are going to be protecting their earnest money. Okay. That's also our cross our fingers deadline, because at this point, pretty much everything's out of our hands. Now we're at the finance side. But if you've been working with the loan officer, you'll have a good feel of where this is going, where you're going to be at. The length of that deadline of the contract, VA, FHA, conventional, typically you can get done about 28 days. Depending on the lender you talk to, USDA, they can get all of their stuff done typically within 28 days, but it has to go through a secondary review. So if you've got someone buying USDA, you want to talk with their loan officer. Cash, as fast as we can get title work done, they want to go through. Of course, cash, you don't have to worry about a financing and appraisal deadline. Okay, closing disclosure. We know this has to go out to your buyer 72 hours prior to settlement. This one does count weekend days. That's the nice part. So if it goes out on a Friday, Friday to Saturday, Saturday to Sunday, Sunday to Monday, depending on what time it went out, it's potential you could close on that Monday, but it will probably be evening. So you'd be looking more toward Tuesday. Your buyer has time, has the opportunity, still at this point, could reject the loan. But now you're in that financing and appraisal deadline period. So they need to know that. Typically by then they'll have a pretty good feel if they're going to qualify, what they're going to qualify for and what's going to happen. They need to open that email as soon as they get it, because as soon as they open it, it asks, typically the lender has some way of verifying they signed it, they've opened it, they've received it, so we can keep that clock going. The last deadline we wait for is the clear to close. That comes after the disclosures have gone out, have been approved by the buyer, and the lender has run the final process for the documents. This is when we get notice. This is final loan approval. And this is when they say, okay, this is the earliest we can have all the final documents prepared. They usually call it their closing department, that they'll be able to have the documents ready to actually meet with title and close. And now's when you're talking about scheduling a specific time to close. Typically, it's on the settlement deadline. If they are prepared to close prior to that deadline, then all the parties need to approve that if they're going to close early. Sellers typically can sign before, and oftentimes will, before the buyer, because the prorations aren't going to change. A buyer, the prorations could change dramatically if they sign 2 or 3 days early, because everything's still prorated to the date of the agreed upon settlement. So if you're going to settle early and have clear to close, then that needs to be communicated so that the documents are correct. At settlement, that's when we get all the signatures. According to the contract, just a reminder, settlement is not the same thing as closing. Settlement occurs whenever all the documents have been signed, the money has been transferred, and all the documents have been provided to all the parties. Closing is when it's funded and recorded. Just a reminder that your clients need to bring valid photo ID. And you take a picture with them and celebrate and post it on social media. You should be there for settlement, make sure everything goes smoothly for your clients, and one more opportunity to interact with them. Closing is sometimes referred to as funding and recording. All parties have received the funding, and the new deed of trust is recorded with the county. And this is the legal transfer of property ownership. So if the buyer can take possession upon recording, they can't get the keys until we have notification from title that it is funded and recorded. If they are taking possession on a later date, you still make arrangements with the selling agent for getting keys. They just need to know they can't move in prior to that. And then the move-in date, of course, making sure that that's been arranged in advance. They know well in advance. If they want to use our Prex moving trucks, very early in the process, you need to find out what day their settlement date is, their possession date, when they're going to actually move, and make those arrangements through Ashley to make sure the moving truck is available, and that you either, if you can be present or someone from the office can be present at the time they check the truck out and when they check the truck back in. And that's pretty much it. That's your big day at that. Those are your primary deadlines. They're going to be, the actual dates will depend on what you have recorded in the contract. And what you're looking, those dates. Any questions with our last 90 seconds?
No, I'm good. Headed to baseball.
Yep, headed to baseball. All right, well, try not to sunburn too much.
Yeah, it's at Timpview. I don't know where that's at, but that's where we're going.
Timpview, American Ford.
Is that where it's at?
Yeah.
Okay, well, good to know. That's where I'm going.
American Park. All right, Jason. Any questions?
Tiffany is actually, it's an Orem.
Oh, Timpview's
Is it?
It
north,
is?
right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
an Orem.
All right. You
Sounds
take care.
Bye.
All right, bye guys.
Bye. Bye-bye.